Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my good friends over at SaneBox. Remote knowledge workers are absolutely inundated with distractions these days. Emails, voicemails, Slack messages, and a million other pings that keep you from traveling the world, getting that first remote job, or moving to a new country. These days, to get ahead, we have to be great at prioritizing what really matters. In my case, that meant cutting down on the world's #1 productivity killer, email clutter. So I turned to SaneBox. You can think of SaneBox's AI as your own personal email box assistant. It gets to know your preferences and tendencies, then automatically filters out the distractions and sorts your emails for you into folders and priorities that fit your workflow. I personally love Sane Black Hole, where you can drag messages from annoying senders you never want to hear from again. They also offer Sane reminders to ping you if someone hasn't replied to you yet, alongside other automated files for anything from your receipts to your news feeds, all in one place. SaneBox works within any email client you're currently using and can be set up in a matter of minutes. Even better, About Abroad listeners can access a 14-day free trial and $25 in credit when they sign up at sanebox.com/abroad. Check out the link in the show notes for more details. My guest today is my new friend Esther, who joins us from the beautiful tropical island of Mauritius off the coast of Mozambique in Africa. She is living the dream as far as I can tell, spending 6 months living in Amsterdam and the other 6 months wintering wherever she finds the best weather and the prettiest beaches. And this year, that is Mauritius. She walks us through the digital nomad visa process and some of the mechanics behind that, so we understand how any of you listening can go spend up to a year on the island of Mauritius, as well as walks us through some of the details of the island, which parts you might want to live on, a little bit about the culture and the history and the type of people you'll meet there. So a lot of fun. I learned a ton because I admittedly knew very little about Mauritius before this conversation, and just thoroughly enjoyed chatting with Esther about the life that she's created and this beautiful place that I now have to go visit. So please help me in welcoming Esther to About Abroad. So is this like a normal lifestyle you've been living where you basically, do I understand it correctly, you spend like half your time in some foreign awesome land and then the other half of your time in Amsterdam? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's how it's been now for, I would say, like 2 years that my husband and I have been doing that. Yeah, we have our own apartment in Amsterdam, which luckily for us is quite easy to rent out to other expats. So that gives us the chance to just skip horrible winter and rainy seasons, and just head out somewhere else and come back when it's fun, when the summer starts. Yeah.
That's an incredible way to live life. Like spend half your time in Amsterdam, which people that listen to the show know that I'm a huge fan of the city. It's like one of the places I feel really called to go live in for some period of time at some point in my life. And so, yeah, I can imagine you're right. Like I'm sure it's not hard to rent your place out that if it's there in Amsterdam.
No, not at all. Actually, also there's a lot of places looking for expats and for work. There's a lot of work there right now. So yeah, also a lot of expats looking for housing. And yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's an awesome city. I mean, we've lived there now for over 10 years, still can't get enough of it. So in that sense, I always really love to go back as well. But it's also, it also knows cold winters, rainy winters, and those I like to escape when I can. Yeah.
It's a fun way to live life though, summering in Amsterdam and then wintering in places like Mauritius, which is where you are now and where we're going to spend a lot of time today. I would love to know a little bit about a little bit more about this 2-year stint you've been on of season hopping. Where else have you gone?
Well, last year we've been to Portugal for the main period of time. I know a lot of people go there right now. It's a very popular digital nomad destination, which is, I completely understand because it was awesome for us as well. It was, of course, in COVID time. So that was kind of an easy destination for us because it was still within Europe. We could drive there and we felt like, the weather is nice there. We could just relax, even if everything goes in lockdown, there'll be some sun. So that felt like a good solution. So that's where we were for 5 months. And then the last month we went to Seville in Spain. Had an awesome month there as well. I'd never been to Seville, but I don't know if you have, but it's such a nice city. I love it so much.
Oh, it's an amazing city. Yeah. The first time I went there, I thought like, I'm living here. This is my favorite city in Spain. And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I really saw myself being there for a longer period of time as well, but then it gets extremely hot there.
Yeah, you got to escape summers there. Like that's, the winters you're going to be sitting pretty, but in the summer, I mean, people literally just like sit in their house in front of the air conditioning.
It's pretty brutal. Yeah. I think we were there like in April, which was perfect. And then we went back and then, so this is like the second year in a row that we're doing it like this, like splitting our time. But a couple of years before this, we spent a year in Australia as well. So wow. Yeah, when we came back from that, we were like, well, we want to do this again. How can we involve work? And that's kind of where the remote work thing also came in. And yeah.
Was it a long-term plan? Like, was it something you guys were planning for a long term? Like, okay, we're going to make this life happen? Or did you just sort of stumble across it because of COVID, or what's the backstory there?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, actually. I mean, when we went to Australia, we really like quit our jobs in the Netherlands and just, we were 30, we could still get a working holiday visa. So we went there, not really with a plan, but just we had some savings, like, okay, let's see if we can find a job and see where we go. It was awesome. It was amazing. But when we came back, then of course you have no job. So you kind of have to start again from scratch, like, applying for jobs, maybe taking a job that, you don't necessarily like that much or, so we were thinking a bit like, well, we'd love to do this again, but would be great if we could take our jobs with us or if there was another way, So at some point I found a job where I could work remote and I was really actively looking for that. So I was really happy to find it. But my husband, he's in sales. So it was more difficult for him because obviously he needed to be face to face with clients. But yeah, then COVID kind of helped because his employer saw that do video calls and as long as his internet connection was good, everything worked out. So yeah, at some point he was like, well, as long as I'm working online, can't I do it from Portugal as well? And they were like, yeah, sure. Yeah. So that's kind of where we went from there. So in that case, like COVID did give us like an extra push to make it happen. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I think that that exemplifies what so many people experienced over the last couple of years in this silver lining of this horrible pandemic and the horrible situation that people have found themselves in. That is the silver lining, is that so many people have now had this access to freedom that they wouldn't have had otherwise and are getting to now do things like, winter in Mauritius, which doesn't sound too terrible.
Exactly. And I think it also eliminates the idea that you have to have your own company or you have to be like a freelancer to be able to do this. Now there are more and more companies that are enabling this, which I think is absolutely great because there are so many benefits to it. I really believe that.
Yeah, you and I are definitely aligned on that. One other question I'm really curious about, if you don't mind me asking, like what platform do you guys use to rent your place out? And the reason I ask this is because maybe it's Airbnb. If it is, just tell me. But there's lots of platforms out there that I think are catering more to this like longer term stay. And there's more and more like, digital nomads, or I think I love this new phrase like corporate traveler or corporate nomad or something like that. But there's more of these situations where people are looking for something for 3-6 months. And so I wondered if you're using anything besides Airbnb.
Like to rent out our place, we actually use a company that's more catered to expats. So for longer term rental. So that starts with 6 months actually. And it's a Dutch company. It's called City Homes. I'm happy to promote them here because they're really awesome. Like they've helped us a bunch of times already. And they kind of, they post our home online, but they are also in contact with companies, international companies who are bringing their employees to Amsterdam, or so in that way they can actually get quite a large database of interested people. And they take the good thing about it is that they take a lot out of our hands. So they do like the check-in, the check-out, they take a deposit, they they help us get the candidate. So yeah, in that sense, it's a relief for us that we can kind of leave with a relaxed feeling because it's also our home. We also live there 6 months a year, so it's also nice to feel that taken care of. And so far, the renters that we had have been amazing. Yeah.
That's great to know. I mean, I think that there's going to be more and more of these platforms emerging to service this niche. It's not even, I don't know if it's really even a niche anymore. It's a pretty broad niche, but there's a lot of people searching for this, and like the extremely high prices from the consumer side on the Airbnb side just make it not really worth it. I mean, you can't really justify it. When I first started doing digital nomading, like going month to month in places, Airbnb was brand new, and it was easy to negotiate with a landlord who was used to maybe renting it for one night or 5 nights a month or something, and say, hey, look, we're going to come for a whole month. Can we make this equitable? But now platform just doesn't really work that way. There's so much supply there that, just doesn't really work. So anyway, the prices are really high. It's hard for the consumers. And then also from your side as the owner, it's you want to know who's in there, and you also want to be able to enjoy your time away and not have to be running a hotel basically while you're on vacation. So
yeah, exactly. I'm really rooting for those kind of alternative platforms to come alive. I see that there's more and more coming, but I also understand that it takes a long time before you have a good database and all that. But in that sense, I love Airbnb because I use it a lot, but I do miss also like certain filters. Like, when you work remote, you really want to make sure that the internet connection is good. And, there's just a few things that I feel are sometimes takes a long time with Airbnb to go through all the assortment they have and really find what you need to be working remote. So I do see that there are more platforms coming, but it's still like in the beginning phase, it feels like. So I'm waiting for that to become a bit more elaborate.
Yeah, me too. There's one here. Another problem is like the locations with those platforms, because like you said, they need the inventory, but then they also need like a critical mass in certain places wherever they're going to have a presence. And so that can be really hard, like outside of a urban center, for instance. But there's one here that's available in Valencia and around Spain and other parts of Europe, but I think it's pretty well known in Spain. It's called Spata Home, which is only 1 month rentals, like or more, like at least 1 month. So that can be something useful. And is City Homes the one that you mentioned? Is that just in the Netherlands, or do they have other locations?
Yeah, they're just in the Netherlands, and they are a little bit more like focused on the expat market and like company market. So in that sense, I don't know if they would ever maybe venture out more into like digital nomad market maybe, but they're only located in 2 cities in the Netherlands, and they really work owners who come to them saying, look, this is what I want for a year, 2 years, 6 months, and then they start. So it's nice. It's a different concept in that sense, but it works really well.
Cool. That's great. Good info there. I think that's really useful, especially if somebody's thinking about moving to Amsterdam or to the Netherlands. If so, we just recently released another episode about somebody who just made the move to Amsterdam. We actually have a couple of those. So the Netherlands is a very popular subject on this show. So maybe that'll be useful. Okay, we got to get to Mauritius because this is what brought us together here. You are on the digital nomad visa. I'm gonna say a few things that I think I understand, and then you just tell me where I'm wrong and elaborate where you want. But you're on the digital nomad visa in Mauritius, and I believe you're experiencing this place for the first time. You seem to love it there, and so we want to just dive in and talk a bit about Mauritius and this beautiful island, and kind of tell people a little bit more about it for those that might not be, they might not be in the know on everything there is to know about Mauritius, and then the digital nomad visa. So let me know if I'm wrong there anywhere, and we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about everything. It's a digital nomad visa. They call it the premium visa. I think they released it they launched it in 2020, 2021, like a lot of countries did with the start of COVID. And I think it's a very smart move in that sense that they allow you to come for a longer period of time, in this case, 6 months to a year. Actually, Mauritius is already quite easy going with tourist visas as well, because you can stay originally for 3 months, and then once you're here, you can extend it to 6 months. So in that sense, it's already quite easy going. But with the digital nomad visa, they really want you to, they encourage it to stay a longer period of time, as long as you show that you have your income from abroad, from your own country. You have to show you have a minimum income of $1,500 per month. And then you just have to show a few things like health insurance, return ticket, those kind of things. But it's all very straightforward. It's free as well. So I have to say the process was super easy actually. And made it very, very easy for us to make the decision consultation. Another really important reason for us to come here is that the time difference with Europe is only 3 hours in winter, 2 hours in summer. So that was for us quite important, especially because my husband has a lot of sales calls in Europe. So that's ideal. Yeah, I also didn't really know beforehand, but because I also didn't really know a lot about Mauritius, but that's actually a big plus. So that's great. Yeah.
So let's be honest, you're not alone there. But a lot of people listening are the majority, at least, we'll go with that. Probably are like, yeah, I've heard of Mauritius, and that's not a shot at you, Mauritius. There's just a lot of countries out there, and we can't know a lot about all of them. So I don't know. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Mauritius, and then maybe we'll come back to some of the details of the nomad visa, because I think it's great to share, how people can go and arrive. But it sounds like a pretty simple process. But Mauritius, okay, let's like maybe fill in some blanks here. Like where exactly is Mauritius located, and what continent is it a part of?
It's part of Africa, and it's located on the eastern side of Africa. So like off the coast of, I have to say this correctly, it's Mozambique, if I'm correct, but don't shoot me. Okay, you saw it's correct. Okay, that's good. It's closer to, first you have Madagascar, and then you have a super tiny island that's Mauritius. It's in the Indian Ocean, and it's very small. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. I think I shouldn't be calling out data, but I think it's like the second richest country of Africa. It's very developed. So everything works perfectly here. I was surprised, but actually the internet connection here on the island is fantastic. The internet connection in my home is faster than I have it in Amsterdam right now. So that's good. And yeah, everything, the nature is beautiful. It has a side of the island, especially in the south, that's very rugged, very green, very lush. But then it also has, maybe that's how people know it as well. It's also quite touristy. There are quite a lot of resorts on the island, but there's also a nice, especially in the north, a nice area with, lots of bars and restaurants and shops. So in that area, it's quite lively, which I didn't really know beforehand. It was a little bit of a guess, like let's see what it's like. But there's actually quite a lot to do here. It's actually quite fun. But you're very close to nature as well, and beaches are insanely beautiful. The most beautiful beaches I've seen.
Oh, really? That's amazing. That's good to know. So okay, down in the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Africa, off the coast of Mozambique. And when you say touristy, can you like it can be a little bit touristy? Where are the tourists coming from? Are they other Europeans mainly, or where do you I would love to know like what it feels like when you're there, like who you're surrounded by.
Yeah, there's a lot of French actually, because the main language here is French as well, or actually it's Creole, but the second language is French. There are direct flights from France, so there's a lot of people coming from there. And then there's quite a lot of South Africans here as well. But then South Africans, I've met quite a lot. Well, a lot of them are living here. So they've actually moved here because it's a very safe island. And there's a lot of business opportunities here as well. Lots of companies who've relocated from South Africa to Mauritius. So I would say those are the two nationalities that you see the most. And then the Mauritians, it's a very mixed crowd. So there's like the Mauritian person, it can be kind of anything. There's a lot of Indians here, a lot of people from Asia. There's some African influences. It's really a mix of everything, but everyone I do really have to say is super friendly. Everyone speaks English very well. So it's in that sense very easy to kind of, step in and create a life here. Although I've experienced that everywhere I go, it's always a bit difficult to mingle with the locals. It's more easy to meet expats and other people coming from other countries. So that's always a bit like you really have to try.
Yeah, that can always be like a little bit challenging. And I think it speaks like really highly of a place when the locals are like truly welcoming, especially in kind of a touristy place where, maybe they're not so excited to see just another tourist. Even if you are going to be there for a longer period of time, you still kind of fall into that category. But I think it's awesome when you can find these places that are still really like welcoming and the people really genuinely want to have you there. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do really get that feeling. And perhaps it's also, it's after COVID kind of. So obviously they're also very happy with tourism in that sense. But I think there's also, I always feel like if you treat people with respect and if you also try to be involved or get interested in the culture, ask questions and support the locals, it's also an important way to kind of, and then you get it in return as well. Yeah. They'll treat you nicely as well.
Yeah, you kind of pay it forward that way and it comes back around to you.
Yeah, I feel like it does work like that. But yeah, so far everyone has been super friendly and welcoming. But yeah, we've met quite a lot of expats, mainly from South Africa, who have started a life here here who are here for a couple of years, and which is also really nice because I didn't know anyone from South Africa before. So now that has triggered my interest, maybe as like a next destination as well.
That's up there on my list too. We had someone on the show a couple months back that really piqued my interest in South Africa, and another previous guest on the show that she's doing her winter escapes from Germany down into South Africa and really enjoying it. So this part of the world is starting to become very attractive to me because I have also decided like I'm doing no more winters. Like even though I'm in Spain and the winters are not like horrible, they're not bad. It's still like after about a month of winter, I'm ready for summer again. You're
done. Yeah. And Valencia, I've never been there in winter, but does it get cold or is it always a bit like medium temperature kind of?
Yeah, it's never like below freezing or anything like that. It'll be, you might get days that are like 5-10 degrees Celsius, somewhere in that range, but it's not bad. The thing is, this year though, it's been really rainy, or this winter has been really rainy and like long. Like it's just now starting to warm up a little bit, so people are really over it. And people in Valencia don't really know how to handle rain. Like when it rains, they're just like, I don't understand. I've literally seen signs up on restaurants after 2 days of rain, like closed for rain, and you're just like, and it's like outside, so you closed your shop. Like that's amazing.
Yeah. It's really weird.
But the whole city is built around being outside. So it's restaurants are all, there's like 2 tables inside and 30 tables outside. So when it is raining, it is kind of like a surprise, and it's sort of like, well, what do we do?
Yeah, that's actually the same here. I thought that was really funny. Like in the Netherlands, if it rains, that's where the delivery service, like the food delivery, is at its peak, because everyone stays inside and all the guys on their bikes are delivering food. But so here it was raining one night and you're ordering. It's like, no, it's closed because it's raining, because they don't want their people to get wet. You're like, what? This is the night.
I'm from like the southeast of the US also, and you get some snow there, like especially in the mountains, but it's still like very small amount of snow comparatively to like places where it actually snows. And in the and when it snows, like maybe once a year or every other year or something, like in the outside of the mountains in that geographic area, you might get like a couple centimeters or something, and it's the same. Like people can't drive, the schools shut down, like everybody goes crazy. And so I kind of liken it to that, and these like beautiful tropical destinations like Mauritius or along the Mediterranean here, where they're just like, I don't really know what to do with this rain.
No, gonna stay in and wait for it to go. Yeah.
And there's a lot of Dutch here in Valencia actually, because I guess I read something, there's like 20 something direct flights per day between the Netherlands and Valencia. So a lot of my friends here are Dutch, and you hear a lot of Dutch tourists. And so I think they also, like you, they're like, okay, let's escape the cold winter and come down here. You've just taken it a step further and gone all the way down to like off the coast of Africa.
Yeah. I wanted this winter. I was really looking for more tropical. I really loved Portugal last year, but I think maybe you can compare it a little bit with Valencia. It was very sunny, which I loved, but there were some cold days and rainy days. And I was like, well, maybe there's a place where it's just like constantly nice weather, and that's really what this is. Like I wake up every morning very happy because the sun is there and it's always warm, and I'm not wearing shoes any day. I'm just wearing flip-flops, no socks. It's really the best thing.
Did you guys find a place to stay like the whole 6 months, or did you bounce around a little bit?
No, we did in this case, because like in Portugal, we bounced around between, I think it was 3 or 4 Airbnbs. But here we found it was a bit difficult to find Airbnbs that, mainly offered a good internet connection. That was like our biggest thing. We definitely do need a stable connection, especially for my husband, because he's doing all these video calls with multiple people a day. Yeah, we couldn't really find that on Airbnb. It was a bit difficult. They also didn't have a big selection of houses. So that's when we got in touch with like a local kind of real estate agency here could help us. And they only did long-term, like starting from 6 months. So we made the decision like, okay, then we're just going to stick with that. And we did like a little online viewing, and we didn't really need that because the pictures looked amazing already. But they did the viewing with us, and it looked great. And to be honest, it does give some calm, like some peace as well, because we already knew we were going to be here for 6 months, and now we don't have to move around. We have great neighbors. We have a beach like literally 5 steps away. So I wouldn't have been so excited about moving anyway. So it's been a good decision. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to leave this paradise at the end of the stay, isn't it?
It will be. Yeah, it will be. We're going to miss it a lot. And also the people that we met here, which it's always been bittersweet, I guess. But it also makes, I love this 6 months on, 6 month off kind of thing, because I think also because it's temporary, it's what it makes that's what makes it so good and so intense, because you enjoy it so intensely because it's going to end, and it's always bittersweet. Then you leave, you're going to miss something, but you're going to something that's also great. So yeah, I know Amsterdam's going to be great again as well, but I'll definitely be homesick for a little bit when we come back. Yeah, that's the downside.
I can totally relate to this. I 100% get it. I'm actually currently on a extended time away from my like quote unquote home in Valencia, which is obviously a home away from home where I'm really from. And so I feel that in like multiple levels. I'm like, I'm away for a little while. I'm like, where's home? I'm excited to go back there, but I'm also like enjoying the adventure. And it's just there's some nostalgia associated with that. That's kind of hard to explain, and nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Like saying like, oh, I'm so sad to leave Mauritius, but it is a real thing. You kind of can't help it. And when you have all these options, it does become a little bit of like, you mentioned this with, having a place for 6 months versus bouncing around. And it was kind of nice just to like have that decided for you, right? Like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't have to think about where we're going next. And it's a bonus that it worked out amazingly. But I think there could be some peace of mind.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely gave me that. And in general, also, I think if I speak for myself, but I think my husband agrees as well, that like hopping around as well, like staying somewhere, like going from place to place, could be also different countries. It also, we work during the week 5 days, so you only have your weekends and your evenings. So that feels very rushed. Like I really like to get to know a place and take my time there, get to know the people, the culture. And I feel that after 1 or 2 months, I cannot really experience that. Because people are like, oh, you've been there for 2 months. It's so long. It is, but I'm also working. So it's not that I'm just on holiday every day and exploring the island. And, you're also kind of 5 days a week or 4, you're like behind your laptop. So
yeah. People forget about that. Like you are working, and a lot of times after work, you're not exactly like wanting to go out and explore and adventure and experience something new. You're like, I want to put on my pajamas and watch Netflix and go to bed.
In the beginning, you feel guilty, but it's also part of it. Yeah.
Can't go at full speed the whole time. Before I forget, I wanted to ask you, what was do you mind sharing the name of the company that you used, the local real estate agency? If you can't remember, we'll just link to it in the show notes afterwards.
Yeah, I'll look it up because I'll give you the name of the woman who helped us. She was a South African woman. I found her on Facebook, this Expats in Mauritius group, and she was amazing. Like she linked us to the homeowner, and she was fantastic. So I'd be happy to, but I want to make sure I get her last name right as well. So I'll send that to you because I'll be happy to give her a shout out. She helped us enormously.
Yeah. So that way, we'll put that in the show notes for anybody interested after listening to more about this paradise and you want to go there. That might be a good outlet to have. And actually that was a perfect little segue. I didn't know that would happen. I was going to ask you about like community. You mentioned the Facebook, expats in Mauritius, which I think is always a good tip for anybody that's going to move abroad somewhere. Just go to Facebook and type in expats in wherever you're going. And there's usually a pretty awesome Facebook group there that can be really, really helpful for like, they have got like boots on the ground. They know where to go, know what to do. And this can be super, super useful. So that's great that you found that with Mauritius as well. Were there any other like tools or platforms or groups that you found really useful that you would recommend to somebody interested in doing what you're doing?
Well, no, not really, in that sense that I think the expat community or digital nomad community is not the same here as it is in, for example, Portugal or maybe a place like Bali or something that's very, extensive and developed. And I found that even in the Facebook group, there wasn't a lot of activity in that sense of, who wants to meet up or, those kind of things. To be honest, we didn't really have to do a lot because we had a few neighbors here who were so friendly to us. Like the day we moved in, they already stopped by like, hey, you're new and what are you doing? And they were mainly South Africans. And yeah, they invited us. Well, I would say a barbecue, they would say a braai. And like the day after, and then we met others. And so it kind of went from there, which is also kind of the way I like it the most, but you never know it's going to be. Sometimes you have to put in a bit more effort. But this time it went really smoothly and we just met people through them. And so I have to say, like in this regard, I don't have a lot of advice, I'm afraid. But there were like, I think there's 2 Facebook groups that I found, Expats in Mauritius, and there was something like Digital Nomads in Mauritius that was very small that I would have otherwise used.
It happened organically for you, which is the best, I think. That's preferable for sure. But it's good to know that there's some resources out there. On that note, do you think like some of these countries with digital nomad visas, there's some chatter about this in other countries that like the ones that are really having success with it are a piece of the pie is not just the visa itself, but also the community they're building around it. And some countries are doing a really good job of this because they really, really want to attract digital nomads and using that term digital nomad very broadly. Like they want to attract knowledge workers who are getting paid somewhere else to come live in their country for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. Do you feel like Mauritius is like actively pursuing this and creating this community and that kind of thing, or is that still yet to come?
That's definitely still yet to come. They could do a lot more in that sense, I think, because I see what you mean. There's a lot, for example, like Mexico. Like I see Mexico everywhere, or Madeira, or those kind of places where they're really putting in the effort and they make it very attractive. And Mauritius is still very much at the beginning stage. I think they have so much to offer because then you have the time zone, you have the weather, you have the visa, you have good internet. They actually have quite a few co-working offices here as well. So that's amazing. There are quite a few nice coffee places that I found where you can work from. So they have a lot to work with. But there is still like a few steps to go in like making that knowledge or making that known around the world. So I'm really hoping that's why I also wrote a blog about it, just to kind of show people like it's really worth it to come here. And also, especially now, maybe because it is not that super well known yet. So it also has still its authenticity a little bit more, I guess, which I always like. And it's really worth it. I'm really like using this podcast to give a shout out to to Mauritius in that sense. Like people go here because it is worth it. But yeah, you do have to put in the work a little bit yourself in terms of like if you're really looking for a community. They are here, but also like for example, if you go to bars or something, don't be afraid to just walk up to people because they will be happy to talk to you. But you do have to put in a bit more effort maybe than it would just be like from a meetup group or something like that. Yeah.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This season is brought to you by my good friends over at Insured Nomads. They're the absolute best in the business when it comes to providing health, travel, and medical insurance for nomads, expats, and really just all forms of world travelers. I know insurance is often something that's overlooked when we're fantasizing about traveling the world, but it's absolutely necessity that we address this because often the policy you have in your home country isn't going to cover you while you're abroad. And it's also a requirement, as a lot of people may not realize, to actually buy private travel or expat insurance, as it's called sometimes, to obtain a visa or even enter certain countries. So fortunately, there are companies like Insured Nomads to help us with this. Not only do they have excellent coverage and great prices, but they're also providing a first-class experience with additional perks and best-in-class technology via their app. It's an amazing experience. I can't recommend it enough. Now, this is a company that was built by world travelers for world travelers. So they know what it's like to find yourself in a difficult medical situation abroad, and they want to keep you from having that same bad experience. So the next time you're planning a trip abroad, whether it's for a week or a lifetime, check out Insured Nomads via the link in the show notes. If you've made it this far into the episode and you're still enjoying yourself, then I would love to ask a quick favor. Open up the app that you're using to listen to this podcast and leave a quick review. You can do this in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and really just about any platform that allows podcast listening now. If you can't find that in the interface of the app, then scroll down in the show notes and find ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, and you should be able to leave it from there. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. I also find myself wondering now, like, and this is going to be a very broad question. It might be really hard to answer, but let me ask the question and then fill in the blanks a little bit. So I want to know more about the vibe. Like, so my direct question would be like, what's the vibe like in Mauritius? And to elaborate on that, I guess, like if I go to Bermuda, I kind of know that I'm getting more of like a resort golf course and hotels and kind of upscale kind of place versus if I go to Bali, I know I'm getting like a digital nomad hub and that kind of scene. Or if I go to Chiang Mai in Thailand or Playa del Carmen in Mexico, I sort of know what I'm getting in those places. You could kind of describe the vibe. How would you describe the vibe in Mauritius?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it has different sides to it, even though it's quite a small island. I think it depends a little bit on where you go. Like in the southwest, it's very beautiful, but but there's a lot of like big golf courses. So more like kind of richer expats or retired people would go there. So it's a bit more like older, maybe graphic or demographically. And then, then there is a part of the island where it's filled with resorts and there is not a lot around it. So people would really stick to their resorts and stay there kind of. But then you also have like the part where I'm at, that's more like in the north, where it's definitely more lively. There's more like tourists who are not necessarily staying in a resort, but just like apartments or smaller hotels. And there's a lot more going on in terms of bars. And like I said, also places where you see more and more people coming in with their laptop working. There's quite a few co-working spaces. So it really kind of depends on where you go. And then there's also quite a big kite surfing community here. Kite surfing in a certain part of the island is really good. There's a lot of wind on the east coast. So if you're into that, or just even normal like windsurfing, there is also quite a big part of the island where you can go and where they have surf schools, and it's a more like surfy, hippie maybe kind of vibe. So in that sense, it's a small island, but it really has something for everyone. I really think so. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Are there any specific places on the island, like towns or cities, like that you would recommend people kind of focus in on if they're searching? If I went to Mauritius, like if I was thinking about moving to Mauritius right now, like I'm looking at it on a map, I would be like, I don't know where to begin.
That was also my issue when I started to look for accommodation. It was quite difficult. But I definitely recommend, like if you want to stay somewhere a bit longer, I would recommend the north around Grand Bay or Teddy Bear. That's where I live. That's kind of more like the lively area, and you have a lot of options in terms of restaurants and beautiful, beautiful beaches here. Very quiet, secluded bays and really nice. Then if you're really looking for like rugged nature, you would have to go south around the Morne, that kind of area, Tamarin as well. So that's kind of like southwest. We did a little road trip around the east. I thought it was beautiful, but from what I hear, it's not necessarily the greatest place to live because there's a lot of resorts. There's a lot of wind, which is great for kite surfing, but then you get kind of sick of it and there's more rain there as well. So I would really focus on the north or the southwest, kind of the places most people go to. Yeah.
Good to know. Isn't that crazy on an island, like a really small island, how many different like microclimates you can get? I've been kind of blown away by this. I think I didn't grow up going to islands like this or like in the Caribbean, for instance. Like you pretty much know what you're going to get on most islands, on pretty much the whole island. Like it's a rock with sand and lots of sun, and like that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
in this part of the world, I feel like there's these like rugged, beautiful white sand beaches. Then a couple kilometers or miles away, you've got like green mountains, and there can even be like snow-capped mountains on some of these islands, and then there's forest and palm trees, and it's just really mind-blowing kind of.
It's super weird, because it can really be like clear blue sky and sunny here, and then you pass the mountain and it's super windy, rainy, even like thunderstorms. So it's really hard to tell, and I also had to get used to that you can never trust like the weather reports here, because it's just complete difference. It can be the complete opposite of what they're telling you, which is very confusing for me, because in the Netherlands I rely like my entire life, my day routine relies on the weather report basically, because like, okay, it rains at that time, I cannot like hop on my bicycle, but I could do it 10 minutes later. So that's really important information.
Oh, come on, you don't mind riding a bike in the rain. It's in your blood.
I mind it, but sometimes you have to. You get used to it, I guess. Yeah.
I remember the first time being in Amsterdam and just being totally blown away. I actually have this super vivid memory of this like dad with, he had one of those bikes that has like the box on the front that you could put a couple, like a child or two in.
Yeah, or five. Yeah.
Yeah, or five. Yeah, like a whole family maybe. I think actually, there was two kids sitting in there, and he was biking through this like torrential downpour with this coat on, and the kids were just sitting there like totally unfazed by this, and I'm standing there like huddled up underneath an umbrella trying not to get wet, and I was just like, wow, resilience. That's amazing.
Yeah, you kind of get used to also like not dressing up that much, because like also there's so much wind, so like your hair is going to be messed up, like it's there's no point. So you just really have to keep it basic and just hope it stays dry for a little bit, and that's it. Yeah, but I do miss I always, when I leave, I miss cycling, because it's such a convenient way to get around.
That's one of my favorite things as well, is just like being able to walk or bike and not have to get in a car to go anywhere is really a nice luxury. What about, on that note, what is the deal in Mauritius? Do you need to rent a car or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we rented a car here on a monthly basis, and we weren't sure if we need it because we are quite close to some restaurants and stuff. But no, like walking is already a bit tricky. Like cycling, I would never do that. And definitely rent a car. It's you need it.
Did you find, generally speaking, like we don't have to go into any specifics, but have you found Mauritius to be like in a fairly affordable place in that regard? Like some people might hear like, okay, I got to rent a place, I got to rent a car. You know, you hear the resort word thrown in there, you start to think maybe it's kind of pricey. What has been your perception of that?
Well, yeah, that's actually good that you mentioned that, because I have been like trying to sell Mauritius, but that is kind of a valid point. It's not like Thailand, for example, or Bali. It's not like Asia style kind of cheap in that sense. So that could be like a turnoff maybe for some people. I do have to say like we have quite a big house here, and compared to Amsterdam and the Netherlands, it's really affordable. But then Amsterdam and Netherlands, it's very expensive as well. So in that sense, I'm used to it.
How about compared to like Portugal? Like Portugal's a very popular place for remote workers. Is that fair comparison, or a bit more or less?
I think in terms of housing, yes. In terms of food, like supermarket, definitely not. It's very expensive here, I think. I think because it's an island, so they have to import. And so that supermarket is expensive. On the other hand, I think like going out for dinner, going out for drinks, that's kind of comparable to Portugal as well. So it depends a little bit. Like I definitely spent less here than I would in Amsterdam, but still it's not super cheap. So you wouldn't like going out for dinner. You could definitely go out for dinner for like 20 euros per person, which is very reasonable, I think, but it's not like 10. So I mean, there's always cheaper places. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. You're not necessarily going there to save, but you are going there for the to escape the winters. What was like the weather like during the peak of winter, just to paint a general picture?
Well, it was hot. It's when it's winter here. Well, it's actually summer here in December, January, etc. It's also hurricane season or cyclone season, as they call it here. So you can expect like cyclones or part of cyclones to pass by. We had a few of those. They weren't going directly over the island, so it wasn't as crazy as it could have been. But you definitely notice it for like 3 to 4 days where it's very heavy winds and rain, stuff like that, where you get sometimes caught out from electricity as well. So it is rainy season, so you have periods of rain, but it's nothing like what I'm used to, like a full day of rain, you know? It's like heavy rain, and then it stops, and then in 2 minutes the sky is blue. It's kind of this kind of tropical vibe. And every day around the same, like 30, 31 degrees. Very nice, I would say.
For my US listeners, that's around like 85, somewhere in that range Fahrenheit. So that doesn't sound terrible in February.
Not at all. No, that's pretty good.
Is there any highlights or lowlights, like any peaks or valleys in your journey there that you think would be sharing before we go back to the mechanics of the digital nomad visa? Anything you'd like to share that was like, if you come, you absolutely have to do this, or like if you come, beware, we had this experience, or have we done a good job painting the picture, you think?
Well, I think that in general, like you can do a lot on the ocean. That's really my favorite thing to do here. So go on boat rides, various smaller islands around Mauritius that you can visit, like on day trips. That's really nice. You can swim with dolphins and whales if you're up for that. We tried to find sperm whales here a couple weeks ago, but it's not really the season. It's more like in July, August, and they even have humpback whales then. So if you're lucky, you can spot them and go into the ocean if you're not afraid. So that's a pretty amazing thing to do, I guess. And nature, beautiful. You have to that's what we actually experienced today. Be careful for jellyfish, because my husband got stung by one and it wasn't good. So that's definitely something maybe to keep in mind. I don't think they experience it a lot here because they were actually surprised when we got into the hospital. But it was quite a tricky thing that we weren't expecting. So maybe that's something like to keep in mind. Maybe if you come,
beware of the jellyfish. I'm sorry to hear you had to experience that, and thanks for sticking with the interview, because that sounds like it was a bit of a hectic day.
It was a bit of a weird day, but everything turned out well, so we're all good.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, let's just go back to the visa really quickly. I think you said it's a pretty easy process. You touched on the $1,500 a month and the fact that you need to have show that you have health insurance and a job that, provides you with that income coming from somewhere other than Mauritius. Are there any other main bullet points you would mention about the visa that they're looking for?
Not really, no. I mean, once we applied, they did ask for some extra things, like some extra bank statements. For example, because I work as a freelancer, so I don't have one employer. So I couldn't show them like one contract or one paycheck. So I needed to show like the income that I had on my bank account and ask my employers to write a statement. So those kind of questions they asked, but it was all very straightforward. We did only receive the approval after we already came here. They already said they were quite busy, but it was fine. We entered on a tourist visa, and then after like a month, we got the approval. And yeah, it was really, really easy process. Yeah.
What was the application process like? Like, can you do it online? Did you have to go to a consulate?
No, everything was online. Yeah.
Wow.
Very easy. Yeah.
That's great.
So, yeah.
That's a huge step in the right direction. Like, I mean, that's one thing that Mauritius is doing right that a lot of the other countries offering digital nomad visas are not. So that's a great point. Yeah, a lot of them make you go to a consulate and interview or have to physically walk papers into an office, things like that. So
that's definitely a plus, and also the fact that it's free. It's very accessible in that.
And you didn't have to get anything translated?
Well, actually, they did ask for like the bank statement in English, so okay. I translated that, and also the my insurance policy. But English is fine; like it doesn't have to be French, so that's already easy. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Any application fee, or was it no nothing?
No. There's not a lot to tell in that sense. It's very straightforward, very easy. So if you just go if you Google Mauritius Premium Visa, then you immediately find the website you need by direct.
That's amazing. This sounds like one of the best processes I've heard of so far. When I've dove into these. I'm not going to cut that out. People should hear how I really talk. But I mean, I've looked into a lot of these, and that sounds pretty straightforward. Oh, one significant question: they're not taxing you on the income that you make while you're there?
No, I have to say I don't know what it's like if you stay longer than 6 months, because I know that this 6-month thing is always a bit of a threshold in that sense, but I didn't read anything about that. And since we were not planning to stay longer than 6 months anyway, I didn't really dove.
Just me. Either that or I just screwed you up completely. So.
Yeah, it's a difficult word. So I didn't really get into that, but I think, no, I didn't read anything about that actually. So,
okay. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, there's so much to take here about Mauritius. It sounds like an incredible place. I'm scoping out my winter escape destination. So this one might have moved up the list. I think you did a good job selling it, even though you're not that's not what you're in the business of doing. But that's really been fun to hear more about. Are you planning on continuing doing this in the future? Like, do you want to keep going with this 6 month thing, or is this a last hurrah?
No, it's definitely not. No, I love it too much, this way of living, and as long as the both of us still enjoy it and we can do it for whatever kind of reason, maybe you can't at some point, but then we still want to continue doing it. So we're kind of making plans for next winter already, kind of looking at the different options and making plans. And I think that's also, I like planning, I like organizing, and that's also a fun part of it. And that's also a big part of going back to Amsterdam. Like those 6 months I also used to really look into different destinations, look into the visa options, the internet connection, all those kind of things. I really actually enjoy that as well. I feel it's also a part of the trip itself. Yeah. So then you can already get excited for the next destination as well. Yeah. Yeah.
We share that interest. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She's like, how can you enjoy this trip planning? Like, that's the boring part of it. I'm like, I don't know. I like it. Like, it's like stretching before the run a little bit or something. It gets you in the mode.
Yeah. And I make like some spreadsheets and like highlight them. And I always love to, I started working in travel. I always love like planning trips for others as well. And I think it's just part of the fun.
Is that what you do now? Do you do that professionally on any level?
I do work for travel companies, but I do the marketing more now, the marketing side. So I do content editing mainly, and specifically copywriting. So I mainly write web pages and those things. And my interest is always kind of in hospitality events still the most. It's, where my heart is. So yeah, that's the only thing, the only kind of downside sometimes of working remote is I kind of miss sometimes working in like a travel environment or like an event, or, I worked in hotels where you're really like part of that buzz. So, when I do online or when I do the content editing, I love to work for companies that are at least.
It keeps you connected to that vibe, that energy. But even if you're not physically in it, I think I saw that you're planning something when you go back to the Netherlands, right? Like some sort of gathering of other people doing similar work or something like that. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I've started to think about it a little bit and started to plan it a little bit. I hosted a little event last October, I think it was, before I left, and it was an event for freelancers in Amsterdam because, as a freelancer, sometimes it gets a bit lonely, and especially during COVID, everyone kind of worked on their own. So I wanted to host something where we could maybe get together with a group of people. The group of people I mainly found like on Facebook groups as well that I was already online in touch with. And it was really fun. It was really nice to get together. I got a lot of great feedback from it. And I also really enjoyed it, like hosting something again, because that's really what I love. So I decided, when I come back, I'm going to do it again. So I'm now started to plan a little bit, looking for locations, and probably going to happen in June. So that's, I don't really have specifics yet, but it is definitely something I'm looking forward to doing again. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds super fun. I can totally relate to that. I love remote work and location independence and traveling and all of that. But there is also something that you can miss if you don't intentionally create it, which is that community and that feeling of, being surrounded by other humans, which is still important until the robots take over. We still want to have some human connection. So I can relate to you on that completely.
Yeah, there's no, nothing is ever perfect. That's also the thing. Like there's always downsides to everything. And I think that's a downside that a lot of people experience with remote work. Sometimes you just miss that connection with people or that environment that you're maybe used to. So, but I think there are ways to find that. You just really have to look for it, search for it. That's important.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that's really well said. Like nothing is perfect. And when it's really easy to attack like anything. Like if you say, oh, you're going to go live this lifestyle where you're bouncing around 6 months here, 6 months there, you'll never have X if you do that, or you'll spend too much money on this, or you'll feel lonely. I mean, there are downsides to everything. There's always a trade-off. And so, yeah, it's good to remember that. Like nothing's perfect. I've certainly like sacrificed things to live the lifestyle that I live. I've missed out on, weddings and graduations and birthdays and anniversaries or even funerals, things where I'm like, oh, I should be there for that. And it just physically was not possible. And so, those are real trade-offs, and they have like emotions attached to them and things like that. And it's important to decide, I think, if you're going to live a lifestyle like you're living or like I'm living, is that worth it to you? And if it is, then you just understand that those trade-offs are real and they're gonna take place and you're gonna experience them.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is. You just really have to decide for yourself is it worth it, and what is most important to me. And then sometimes you have to leave other things behind or miss other things. But yeah, that sucks sometimes really bad. But yeah, I think at some point I just really discovered like, this is the life I want to live. This is the lifestyle I want to have. And at the moment, for me, that is the most important thing. And doing that together with my husband is amazing because we share that passion. We share the memories then that you make, which is amazing. So yeah, then sometimes other things you have to let go, or sometimes it's a bit more of a struggle to find work where they'll let you do that, or those kind of things. It's not always easy, and it's quite a lot of work also to get there, to find new destinations. But I truly believe if you're really up for it, then yeah. I actually heard that in one of your previous podcasts where someone was traveling with kids as well. Like that's something that sounds so crazy, especially school-going kids. And people are like, yeah, I can't do that because I have school-going kids. And I think your guest was also saying like, no, you can, if you really, really, really want it, but you really have to want it. That's the thing. If you don't, that's fine. Then don't do it. But you cannot say, oh, I can't do this because I have this and this. You always can. There's always a way. You just have to find it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my main motivations with creating this podcast, was just to sort of debunk some of those myths that I heard so many times as I'm out like traveling or living in different places. I've met people all along the way who defy that conventional wisdom that we have that tells us you can't do something because of X, Y, or Z. People always told me once I got a dog, people told me, oh, your travel days are over. Like you'll never be able to go anywhere without the net. I remember thinking even at the time, like that seems like a crazy thing thing that a dog's going to keep me from going somewhere, and he's traveled around the world with us, and so I don't know. I just think that, where there's a will, there's a way. And there's so many, the cool thing is there's so many services now and so many new opportunities, like the ability to go live in Mauritius for 6 months or a year. Think about if you do have an animal or you do have a family and you want to bring them with you and you want to go do extended periods of time, like you can go do that now. There's schooling options, there's visa options, there's services to help you get all this stuff that you need. So I just think, and above all that, there's work, there's remote work that can facilitate it all. So I just think there's like so many ingredients that are going into this, making it so accessible. And it's really fun to see people taking advantage of it like you are.
Yeah, no, it is becoming more accessible. That's also the good thing. I admire that you're like still doing this with your dog as well, because that would also be something I would say like, oh, really? But I would love to hear like about those, like the ways you found that was possible as well, because I'm sure, if you dive into the possibilities, you'll find a way as well. But that's also something that, like something that stands in the way of doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody is particularly interested in that subject about traveling with an animal, I did write an article for Workforce recently. Workforce is WRKFRCE.com. And there's an article on there all about traveling with pets and how to move abroad with your pet. And Coda, my dog, is a 23 kilo, 50 pound Siberian Husky that has lived in South America and in Europe multiple times and traveled back and forth across the equator and Atlantic Ocean a bunch of times. So I promise you it's possible.
That's so cool. Wow. I'll read that for sure. I'll be very interested to read that.
And we'll drop that in the show notes as well. So awesome. Esther, I think we have covered quite a bit here. I'll let you get going. Is there anything else you want to mention about Mauritius or about your life and what's going on there? And either way, would you please also just mention where people can follow along and learn more about you, your work, your travels, and anything else any other links you want to mention? We'll also drop all this in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I've said a lot already, so I don't know if I have anything to add right now. But you can follow me on Instagram. I actually just recently made a profile. I'm still very not Instagram-y, I guess, but it is there. And I am intending to, I am sharing more and more of life here in Mauritius. But I'm also plan to share, some stories about once I get back, like how does that work? Like how do you start the planning? What do you do? Where do you find accommodation? How does it work with visas? So that's something I want to get out there a little bit more, maybe give people some ideas. So you can find me on Instagram for that. It's just Esther Twist, which is my name. And I'm also on LinkedIn where I share some blog posts now and then about working remote. Yeah, feel free to check it out.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Check the show notes for those links. They will be there. Esther, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay in beautiful Mauritius, and I look forward to following the journey even closer now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. It was really fun. Thanks.
For me as well. Yeah. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.